Look at that. Don't you want to just hold it all close to your body, you know? Hot, sweaty.
Dude, Matt, what are you doing?
Come on.
This is your year. Our 2020 Fantasy Football Draft Guide is available now at thefantasyheadliners.com.
Hey, yo, man, I just want to hold it. Can I hold it for a second?
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake and Kyle coming at you today. Talking some ADP, Kyle. These are some shows that we have done at least last year, and a lot of people are starting to ask questions about it. And what we're going to do here a few times this week, at least, is we're going to start going through ADP round by round, talking about each and every player and whether we're going to buy them or sell them at their current ADP.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, people really took to these shows last year. Absolutely loved the concept of it. And then all of a sudden over the last couple of weeks, a lot of comments, hey, when are you going to be doing this again? And you know what? No better time than right now to start talking about ADP. We're only, like 3 weeks away from the season now. So we are getting really close to having some football.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to jump right into it here. And we're going to talk about round one. And these are the current guys who are being drafted within the first round. Now, this is a consensus ADP that we pull from multiple sites. Our own Chris Kennedy goes through multiple different sites, pulls ADP, and gives us one consensus ADP that we can really use for a lot of the information stuff that you see throughout our videos. So up here on the screen right now, you can see the current 1 through 12. Now, obviously, the first round is pretty solidified for this point, and we may not have a whole lot of differences. So we're going to kick off right here at the beginning with the obvious 1.1 and 1.2, which is going to be Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley. I don't know if there is anybody in the fantasy world that would say that they would sell Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley. For both of these guys at their current spots, heck, even if they were flopped with Barkley at 1, I think we're still buying both of these guys.
Yeah, these are the top two guys. There's really no arguments against it. We're buying both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, number 3, though, is where we're a little bit different, and this may cause a few people's ears to perk up, Kyle, because next to Zeke Elliott's name, in red, under your pretty little icon there, it says sell for Zeke Elliott, where I still have him as a buy. Why are you selling Zeke Elliott at the 1.3?
This is all brand new. Zeke has been my 1.3 all off season long, but recently I've decided to move him back 2 spots. And that's because we already knew that he lost Frederick on the offensive line. He lost his center, right? He's got a new center now this year there on the offensive line. But La'el Collins also expected to miss some time now. This just coming out over the last couple of days. Now, missing one offensive lineman, this is already a really good offensive line. They can probably make it through that. Missing 2 offensive linemen. Now we start to get to an area that worries me just a little bit. And already on top of that, there's some worry that he's not going to get as much work in the passing game because you've got 3 standout wide receivers there as well now. So I'm going to go ahead and just move him back a couple of spots in my rankings because there's 2 guys that I have over him right now. That's the only reason that he's a sell for me. If you said, hey, I want to take him here because I feel comfortable with it, yes, absolutely. He's probably a very safe running back to take right here.
Yeah, he is. He's definitely safe, and that's why I still have him at 1.3. I mean, do we know how much time Collins is going to miss yet? No, not yet, and I hate to pass on somebody with such a safe floor and a high ceiling when there's still a little bit of an unknown. That's why we push so many people to wait as long as you can for your drafts, because if you draft early, you're drafting without knowing some of these things. But he has had the Rona, so hopefully that helps a little bit, make him a little bit safer. So I'm still going to buy Zeke at the 1.3, and at the 1.4 is where I start to get a little happier, Kyle, because just a few short weeks ago, you and I did not see eye to eye on Kamara, and I think that you're starting to come around a little bit. And I'd love to see it, that Alvin Kamara at the 1.4 with a buy next to your underneath your name there. What made you change your mind on Alvin Kamara a little bit?
Honestly, it was how bad he was injured last year. Now we're starting to get a little bit more of a peek inside how much he actually went through last year to try and stay on the field. There were some concerns for me that, maybe he was breaking down a little bit. Maybe he wasn't the type of guy that was going to be able to carry this workload. Maybe it was better for them to, put Latavius Murray on the field a little bit more. One of the biggest concerns too was with adding Emmanuel Sanders there, is he going to be taking away some of those intermediate targets that Kamara has saw in the past? But really, after hearing more about that injury and seeing, yeah, this dude was in some awful shape last year. And even though he didn't have a great season, what a lot of us expected, he probably wasn't losing a whole lot of weeks either. I think we're going to see him back on the field and healthy this year. And now at this point, I'm like, you know what? Buying into him here. I am bumping him up. So I've got him as my running back 4 now. So if you want to take him here, I'm all for it. He's going to have another good year.
Yeah, I've loved Kamara for a long time, and I do think that comeback season is going to happen this year. The more reports that come out, like you said, the more you realize that dude was not 100%, and he still had a fairly good year. I mean, it disappointed a lot of people, but we've seen what his ceiling could be, and I'm all back on board Alvin Kamara. Number 5 is where people think that we've lost our ever-living minds, and just because we're recording this late at night, Kyle, does not mean that we're delirious. We both have Michael Thomas as a sell at the 1.5, and I mean, if people have watched this channel for any amount of time, you know it's only because we love heavy running backs early. I'm not taking anything away from Michael Thomas. It's just if you buy him at the 1.5, you're going to be chasing running backs the rest of the draft.
Yep. Yeah. And that's really the only reason for it. And, the 1.5, 6, 7 this year, I mean, it's really no man's land, to be honest, because if you do enjoy that running back heavy type start, if you decide to invest in a wide receiver in this area, you might end up missing out on some of those really safe guys. Me personally, if I'm at the 1.4, even though I love Michael Thomas, great guy, going to have a great season. Wide receiver 1 could be the overall wide receiver 1. I'm just more comfortable when I have a running back start to my drafts because I feel like I can get some really good value at wide receiver later on. That's going to give me some good upside. So that's the only reason I'm selling him here is because I'd rather have a running back.
Yeah, agreed. And that leads into the 1.6 here, which is the only running back that you and I have as a sell in the first round. We've just sat here and told the people for numerous picks that we want heavy running backs early. Mm-hmm. And here we are, Dalvin Cook at the 1.6, and we're saying to sell. Now, it's not the position, obviously. We love the position of it, but Dalvin Cook is maybe a little bit too high for us this year. I know for both of us, he's a little bit lower in the rankings. There's a lot of other running backs that we would rather have at the 1.6 than Dalvin Cook. We're going to drop him down a few spots. So you and I both have Dalvin Cook as a sell at the 1.6.
Yeah, and I don't want to give away too much because there's going to be a video this week. If you're watching this on Monday, it's coming out tomorrow on Tuesday. That's going to talk more about Dalvin Cook and go in depth just as to why I'm listing him as a sell. But last year we loved him. We had him as a buy last year, and we preached Dalvin Cook. Draft him. But I go into why, and it has a lot to do with the ADP of last year compared to this year. And that's part of the reason why I'm saying sell now.
Yep, absolutely. Next up, the 1.7 is the workhorse himself, Derrick Henry. Now, reports are already coming out that Darrynton Evans is having a hard time holding onto the football in camp. Not that we were ever worried about Darrynton Evans taking away touches from Derrick Henry to the point of where it was going to make that big of a difference. Now, he does have a fairly large hit on the offensive line, losing Jack Conklin, but Derrick Henry still a running back that's going to have 300-plus touches this year. Not too many of those in football, so we're absolutely going to buy him at the 1.7.
Yeah, and I've got Derrick Henry coming up in a must-have running back video very soon. I mean, another guy last year, we were all over. People were scared to draft him, and we kept telling everybody, don't worry about it. He's going to have that huge season this year, and it absolutely ended up happening. So yeah, he's one of the guys outside of Barkley and McCaffrey that even though he doesn't offer that, upside in the pass catching game, how much volume he's going to get, and that just makes him a super safe running back with a great floor that can offer a weekly high ceiling.
Yep. Next up, 1.8, Devonta Adams. Now, similar to Michael Thomas, we're not saying that Devonta Adams is going to have a bad year. I just don't like the way that my team looks if we take, wide receivers early. Now, Devonta Adams, in my opinion, has a chance to maybe finish as the top overall wide receiver this year if Aaron Rodgers just wants to say, you know what, screw this organization. I'm going to go out here and I'm just going to throw everything to Devonta Adams because he's got nobody else to really throw balls to. He could have a huge season. Last year would have been huge had he been able to stay on the field for all 16 games. But like we said earlier with Michael Thomas, if we're not going to buy Michael Thomas, we're not going to buy Devonta Adams there at 1.8.
Yeah, the one thing about, volume with me is I always say that there's a difference between volume and good volume. And not all volume is great volume. I mean, he could get a ton of targets, but there's no guarantee he's going to come down with all those. So there are a couple of wide receivers that I have ahead of him. Like if you told me, Kyle, you have to take a wide receiver here, I'd rather take Tyreek Hill over Devonta Adams. I'd rather take Julio Jones over Devonta Adams. I've got Devonta Adams is my wide receiver 4 right now. But again, too, the volume is going to be there. So even if some of the efficiency, if he were to lose out on that, he should still have a pretty safe floor because of the amount of balls coming his way.
Whoa, that's awkward. Next up, the 1.9, the wide receiver that you just mentioned, Tyreek Hill. And yeah, I love Tyreek Hill too. But once again, I mean, we got to have these running backs early. And people are going to be sitting here watching this video like, yeah, dude, you've told me, I heard you. But we're trying to put a visual picture to this, right? Because there's a lot of running backs that you're probably going to see later on in the week in the second round that we are all on board with. And we really, really want to make sure we hammer home those early wide receivers this year. Tyreek Hill is not going to have a bad year. We just don't want him in the first round. If for some reason he were to fall to the second, I'm still looking at those running backs, but it just makes you think a little bit harder. In the first at 1.9, personally, I'm still going to pass.
Yeah, and one thing just to remind everybody of, a lot of these guys have been in videos this year that we've gone in depth. This type of video that we're doing right now really just is kind of a quick overview, some key points as to what we're looking at. But if you want in-depth statistics and a lot of breakdown on individual players, we are doing that for all of these guys. So you can go back through our videos and find that. I mean, heck, Tyreek Hill was in a must-own wide receiver video for me. I absolutely love Tyreek Hill. But again, we're bringing you into, this is how we draft. This is our mindset when we're going through this draft. This is a strategy we feel that that has worked well for us in the past and that we feel comfortable with. And that's why we're sharing it with you. So once again, love Tyreek Hill, but I'm selling him because in the first round, I would much rather buy one of these running backs that are coming after him in the ADP instead of trying to draft Hill here and then play catch up later on if I don't end up getting that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's draft is different, right? Just because this is what the ADP says does not mean this is exactly how your draft at home is going to go. 99.9% of you, there's going to be some weird picks, some unexpected picks that are just going to totally throw things out of whack. All we're saying is right here in the first round, not where we're going to go. If Tyreek Hill falls, all of a sudden, you start, looking at things a little bit differently. But one of the running backs that you'd mentioned that you would rather have is the guy who comes up at the 1.10, and it's Joe Mixon. Now, if there was ever a bus driver to the hype train of Joe Mixon, it is one Kyle Richardson. I like Joe Mixon. I'm on the bus. I'm not driving the bus, okay? So I see where Kyle is going, and if you've seen his must-have video on Joe Mixon, I mean, if that doesn't, help you buy Joe Mixon, I don't know what else will. That's about everything you could possibly say. But to me, I'd rather have him right about this spot, the back half of the first. I know Kyle has him super high in his rankings. If I can get him at the end of the first, though, all of a sudden, I don't dislike it one bit.
He's my running back 3 now. That's how much I love Joe Mixon. That is the upside that he has. Similar to Dalvin Cook last year, similar to Aaron Jones, similar to Derrick Henry. Guys who were, a couple of years into their career who hadn't had that breakout yet. Joe Mixon has played pretty well on a per game basis, outside of that awful start to the year last year. But there was a lot of factors playing against him when that happened. The Joe Mixon that we saw to end the season is closer to the real Joe Mixon than what we saw to start the season. And like you said, check out that must-have video. Jake, if you'd be so kind, leave a link down in the description of the video below. And then people can check it out when they get done here.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like I said, a lot of good information there. Now, 1.11. And this is absolutely ridiculous. And you're going to have people in the comment section, I can see it already, that aren't going to see an issue with Patrick Mahomes getting into the first round at 1.11 right now, which is crazy. People, stop drafting quarterbacks in the first round.
Knock it off.
Don't do it. Do not do it. The reason that Lamar Jackson was on so many league-winning teams last year, you took him in the 8th round. The reason that Patrick Mahomes was on so many winning teams 2 years ago is because you took him like the 8th, 9th round then. You go out there and you spend this early draft pick, you're going to be disappointed. Not in the play. Obviously, he's the best quarterback pure quarterback in the league right now, hands down. But what is the statistical difference between, heck, even him and a potential Kyler Murray breakout this year, a Dak Prescott? Even though those guys are going early, you can still get them multiple rounds after this guy. And there's no way that I'm passing on a running back to take a quarterback when there is so many great quarterbacks this year. Patrick Mahomes in the first will never happen on any team that I own.
Yep. And I have tried to break this down for Headliner Nation several times this offseason. A video I did a few weeks ago on the difference between taking a quarterback early and taking a quarterback a little bit later says that even based on a point per game scale, you're only going to be without 2 or 3 point difference. However, let's say you take a running back 1 in round 1 and a quarterback 1 in round 5. The difference is when you take that running back 1 in round 1 is compared to taking like a running back 2 in round 5 is who you're going to have on the field, a consistent game player, a guy that you're always going to be able to rely on. I'd much rather have that than having Patrick Mahomes and a guy in the 5th round who might be like a PPR type back or a guy that's more suited for like a running back 3 type of situation. Give me that guy in the 1st round. And then I even did a mock draft a couple of weeks ago showing you if you go quarterback and tight end early, how bad it can mess with your roster the rest of the way. So I have tried to show people over and over again, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, don't do it, people. Don't do it. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Last pick of the 1st round. And this is still somewhat surprising to me a little bit because neither one of us are on the DeAndre Hopkins hype train this year. No. I am an Arizona Cardinals lifelong fan. I am a Cardinals believer. I'm excited to have DeAndre Hopkins in Arizona. I think that he makes them a better football team overall. But when you turn that into fantasy production, there's a fine line right there. And DeAndre Hopkins has absolutely dominated target shares for years in Houston. Now, he's not the only show in town. Yes, Larry Fitzgerald is like 64 years old and almost qualifies for AARP at this point. I get it. Christian Kirk, though, is still a solid wide receiver who has, had a few tough breaks with some injuries. You have the likes of an Andy Isabella, who everyone wants to forget about Andy Isabella. What about our love child from last year with Hakeem Butler? I mean, there's other options there, and they may not be relevant week 1, but it's not just DeAndre Hopkins. We like Kenyon Drake in the backfield. We love, the possibilities of a Kyler Murray this year, but DeAndre Hopkins is not going to see the targets this year that he's seen in years past. It's just not going to be forced to him. The ball is going to be spread around in an air raid offense. And as much as I love him, the addition for the Arizona Cardinals, as far as fantasy football goes, I'm not going to buy him in the 1st round.
Yeah, Larry Fitzgerald may be getting that $5.99 dinner special at Denny's when DeAndre Hopkins is out there on the field practicing, but it doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter. Yeah, there's just so many weapons around DeAndre Hopkins this year. He's not going to be the locked and loaded wide receiver 1 for really the first time in his career. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But, I'm glad I have an Arizona Cardinals fan that agrees with me so people don't think that I'm just hating on them because long term, I absolutely love it. This is perfect. But, for next year, spending a 1st round pick on that with guys with so much more upside, it's a little much for me.
Yeah, I don't want to buy previous year's production here this year. Situations are different, and different situations constitute different draft strategies. And I just can't take Hopkins in the 1st here. Even though it's the end of the 1st, just can't do it. But as you can tell, the 1st round is pretty straightforward, right? There's not a whole lot that Kyle and I really differ on. However, there's a few nuggets in this show that you really need to pay attention to. And like Kyle said earlier, a lot of these guys we've broken down in depth. And that's where you're going to go get the heavy dose of stats and statistics to back things up. This is a quick run through of ADP. We know drafts are coming up, and we want to make sure that you have this information quickly. If you have time to go consume more, you have that option. But as for this video right here, that was the 1st round. We're going to be doing this, I would think probably for the first 5 or 6 rounds. We'll be doing these videos to break them down for you guys. We're going to try to do 3 rounds here this week. And as we get into the drafts, we're going to start differing a little bit more because there's a few players that I know Kyle likes a lot more than I like. But we'll get into that. It's going to be fun. We're going to do our best to give you guys, both sides of the story, right? Because everybody has pros and cons. There's very few guys in fantasy football that are locked and loaded, 100% risk-free. It's just not part of it. If it was, they'd all be drafted in the first 4 or 5 picks. I mean, there's going to be risk with everybody, but hopefully you enjoy this type of series. Like Kyle said, a lot of people enjoyed this last year, and we're asking for it this year. So we're going to go through it as quickly as we possibly can. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. For myself and Kyle, we appreciate all the support. The channel is still growing. The crowd is finally starting to come back, Kyle. People are starting to realize that we're going to have football in 2020. And, oh, wow. You're even flexing on him?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. What movie is that from? I feel like I've seen that before.
Napoleon Dynamite? Yes.
Maybe that's what it is. Speaking of Napoleon Dynamite, you need to go practice that dance. Anyway, that was this in today's show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. Got a ton of fantasy football content for you to consume here over however many days of the year you want to, because we basically have a video every day of our life. That's what it feels like at this point. So hopefully you enjoy all of them. We greatly appreciate the support. Have a great rest of your day, a great week, and we'll talk to you later.